I'm Friesa Newshala, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is Dutch for to take a fresh nose.
Oh.
It's also something you say when you want to get some fresh air.
Very good.
To
yes.
take a fresh nose, yes. I hope everyone out there got some fresh air over the break, because all you're getting from here on out is exhaust and hot air from us until the end of the season, or at least until the next break. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing great. I missed Formula One for the very brief moment we did not have it, but I did get to enjoy some fantastic Tour de France, because we were doing our fun patron exclusive podcast about, what was it, Unchained? Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Unchained.
The English
Heart of the Peloton.
Yeah, it's Heart of the Peloton, Le Quad de Peloton, or whatever it was in French. Much better title. As ever, the French are just ahead of the game. You know, we just love the French, the cultural powerhouses that they are. But,
F1 powerhouses.
Yeah, absolutely. Just killing it. Doing a great job. Olympic ceremony, powerhouses. But we're not here to talk about France. We're here to talk about their weird little orange cousins slightly further north.
That's right. Also joining us, Rob Zachney. How are you, Rob?
Not too bad. Also ready for F1 to resume. Been feeling a little out of it with IndyCar having a weird schedule where all their ovals are piled together, and it's kind of done with the circuit racing for the year for the most part. So it's like I yearn for circuits.
Well, you're in luck, Rob, because I've got a podcast just for you. If you're new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode, which assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 257. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release our ad-free version of the podcast, along with bonus episodes and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's been going on this month, Danny? You mentioned it earlier.
Tell us
about it.
Yes, the first 4 episodes of Unchained, the Netflix documentary series about the Tour de France. There is 2 seasons of it now available on Netflix. We reviewed the first 4 episodes of the first season. Sounds like we all loved it. It was really good. It's produced by the same people who do Drive to Survive, the Formula One docu-series. So similar production values, solid storytelling all around. I think we really enjoyed it. And a massive thanks, of course, to all of our title sponsors. I'm getting choked up just thinking about these beautiful people who support our show, including we have a new title sponsor, and because of the way that I do this chronologically, the new ones go on top. So shout out to It's a Me, Ferrario, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agape ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SCS. True, like that one. At Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, telemetrydeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us podcast, Bunny Fiend, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Voltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, William Romph, Irvine Clinical Research, Lachlan the Maddened Man, Samurai Love Story, and of course, Jason Kelly. We love you all so much. Thank you for supporting our show, and thank you to all of our incredible patrons, especially during the break. I always feel like a dirty boy during the break. I'm like, oh my god, we're getting patron money, and I'm not slavishly editing and talking about Formula One podcasts.
Oh my god, Danny!
All day.
I don't know how. I'm glad I'm only doing one Patreon. Let's just say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the we all
Patreon Live, man.
We've all done it, right? We're all doing it or done it. It's constantly feeling like
Talk
you
a
need
lot
to do
about
more.
that subject. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Well, let's do more about the news, everyone.
Let's.
But yeah, don't worry. We love doing this show, and don't worry, it's not going anywhere unless Danny. we get to your news story.
Yeah, my news story. Yes, this show might disappear and reappear under a different name. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. Again. Rob, what's the latest with F1's parent company, Liberty Media?
So details are a little bit sketchy, but they did confirm that the Department of Justice is investigating Liberty Media for antitrust for antitrust issues surrounding the rejection of the Andretti F1 bid.
Got it. Who among us has not had a DOJ investigation open on us? Could happen to anybody.
The fact that it is targeting Liberty Media, I suspect, is because that's the company that DOJ is like most empowered to investigate, rather than like FOM as an organization to get into. But it is very funny that it does seem like the way this is all played out did catch the attention of, we noted earlier, some members of Congress had raised issues around this. And now the Department of Justice is also just like looking into it. I have no idea it's one of those very odd things, right? Because just the way sports work is that kind of by definition, an organized league is allowed to prevent competition from entering a market that they've kind of created.
Right.
Nobody can say, I am declaring I am starting a football team and I demand to be let into the NFL. Nobody can do that. I think in part because I think there are actually legal carve-outs for a lot of American sports leagues to have exactly that kind of that kind of structure to sort of forbid entrants from coming in. F1 has operated in a similar fashion, so what they did is not that inconsistent. It's basically saying we don't want a new franchise joining our league. But I do wonder if the fact that they had a methodology written down for new entrants to come in, and then they just rejected it because, classic yesterday's price is not today's price. When we wrote that, things were really screwed up, and we were kind of hoping new teams might show up, but now things are really good, and we'd rather they didn't. We'd rather they pay us $1 billion to be allowed into the sport. So I have no idea if this is just one of those like probes that we never hear about again, goes nowhere. It's, it exists maybe as like preliminary findings in the government report somewhere and nothing happens. Or if this is, it would be very funny if the way they handled the Andretti situation and sort of the naked avowed self-interest and the fact that they couldn't stop talking about the many rationales they had for rejecting the bid, if that ended up causing major problems for F1, especially as now more than ever it is not an American sport in terms of like who comprises the teams and the staff, but they run a lot of races here. And Liberty is an American company, so we will see how this plays out.
Yes, very, very interested to see. I mean, Andretti, last I heard, they were moving ahead with like building a factory and just assuming that they were going to get to Formula One, right?
They're doing if you build it, they will let you into Formula One. Right. I think at this stage, maybe Renault should just sell them their team and solve everyone's problems, right?
We noted that in some of the Autosport reporting, there was sort of a behind-the-scenes presumption that Renault might be looking to unload that team. And I think that ultimately is like, it also kind of suggests that F1 read the situation correctly, which was that Andretti were willing to pay much, much more than their anti-dilution fee. Because I feel like at this point, the minute you're making a big deal of opening new factories, making it a cornerstone of your big new Andretti HQ, you're coming into the sport one way or another. And at that point, you've kind of tipped that you're either going to pay a larger anti-dilution fee to get in, or you are going to do what a lot of that is put in place to force is you're going to buy a team. The only other angle I could find like for the DOJ thing causing for issues for Liberty is possibly the fact that Liberty doesn't change its share of like revenue split with the teams based on how many entrants there are, that they get paid the same either way, and the fraction that goes to the teams just shrinks. But again, I don't know what specifically would be the legal cause there for saying you can't do that, because that's kind of just how this whole capitalist system works.
Well, Rob, speaking of legal issues, what else is going on?
So there was a second. So start of the season, there's a lot of discussion around allegations of misconduct and harassment, being a sex pest against Christian Horner, or at least we got the impression of we get those accusations really largely through leaks that came after Red Bull's internal investigation found no wrongdoing. The person who made the complaint exercised their right to appeal that decision, not to a civil court, but to another Red Bull internal review, another independent, not internal, sorry, but it is an independent board that Red Bull appointed to look into the matter. So that was their first investigation. The appeal, it was another independent group. Once again, not really a civil court of law. It was a Red Bull investigatory body, and they dismissed the second the second appeal. So a lot of the headlines are, Horner cleared of wrongdoing. That is true insofar as the team's internal processes are concerned. Where it goes from here, who knows? It is possible that the person who made the complaint is going to just walk away from the process at this stage. That redress within Red Bull has not worked out. But I would not be surprised at all if the next step is some sort of civil action between the employee and Red Bull, which we would see how that goes. Obviously I think it's hard to be anything but cynical about an independent review conducted by people who are fundamentally being paid by the organization that has a lot of incentive to not want to rock the boat. That's not to say these independent review boards are completely bogus, but man, I can't think of many cases in the history of sport where the independent body has really come out with something that made waves for, teams, owners, or the organization as a whole.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's hard to tell, and obviously we're just guessing at this stage, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if the behavior, because we know, I don't know, look, who knows? There was that whole Google Drive, link that was sent to all those journalists with all these text messages, and you can go find that stuff if you want. And I wouldn't want to be married to that guy. Let's, if those are true, then he was clearly acting the bollocks. But whether or not he was pushing past the threshold for workplace, harassment, or I don't know, managerial ineptitude or whatever, just I'm not sure if that's maybe the case. Who knows? It's hard to tell, but I do wonder if there is legal recourse down the road for some other type of, the fact that she was let go is or the plaintiff, whoever it is, was always the thing that struck me, which is that seems like that's what you would do if you were trying to get rid of the problem. But is there an unfair dismissal case then that's there? Because they're obviously, that's not going to be part of that.
I think they might have been suspended with pay.
Okay.
That was one of the things that I remember seeing around.
They were taken out of the situation, but not necessarily financially punished for it, but ultimately punished in many ways.
Yeah, I think the one counter I would say to the what you said about the independent investigation, Rob, is that the rumor was that the Red Bull higher ups wanted Horner gone.
Yes,
they didn't want any of this to come to light at all. They just wanted him out. Who knows that maybe that has changed since it all has come out already, so may as well just keep the guy. Who knows? Exactly. It's hard to, you're reading the tea leaves really when you're doing, maybe the board is completely straight. It's hard to But tell. The other thing is, again, if the rumors are to be trusted here, they lost Adrian Newey because of this.
Right. Yeah.
And now they're losing another one. I'm going to move on to the next story here, Rob, unless you have something else.
Yep.
There's no indication here yet that Jonathan Wheatley, Red Bull sporting director, is leaving because of all this Horner stuff. It's long been assumed that he wanted a team principal job. And interestingly, Autosport points out that he had been considered as a Horner replacement at Red Bull if Horner did indeed go. But he's been with Red Bull for a long time. He joined in 2006. He's going to finish the team through this year, but he will be starting at Sauber in July 2025, which will then turn into Audi in 2026. And he will be splitting the head of the team duties with Mattia Binotto, who we brought up in a previous episode, is going to that team as well. Both of them will be reporting to the Audi CEO, Binotto as the team chief operating officer and chief technical officer, who in this report from Autosport, quote, will be in charge of Audi's Hinwil factory and technical department, overseeing the design and build of new Audi cars, as well as its engine plant in Neuburg. Wheatley will run the outfit's F1 team at events and be its media spokesperson. Audi is currently undergoing a change in management structure as CEO Andreas Seidel and Chief Representative Oliver Hoffman were both relieved of their duties in preparing the manufacturer's entry into F1. So it sounds like they had some stepping stone guys and they were like, I don't know if these are the guys. And then they fired him, to the surprise of, even the driver that they signed, Nico Hülkenberg. And now they've got these two in the seats.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Might be an upgrade.
It sounds like it. Like,
yeah.
Wonder what Carlos Sainz is thinking right now. Is he like, did I make the right call? I don't know. Like,
but
they're throwing
he made
some
his
muscle
call after the Sauber
Binotto.
situation got straightened out. Like, he had ample opportunity, I think, to reconsider this in light of Binotto being brought in to clean this up, and he still didn't. He still threw in with Williams, which is a very interesting, as I mean, we all, maybe F1 drivers are not immune to it. Everyone finds James Vowles a very compelling figure. Like hearing him talk about F1,
which is weird.
Like, oh, this is incredibly.
He's not the most charismatic guy in the world, but there's something about him.
I think it's like one of those goofy, like off the wall forms of charisma, right? Like the sense that like, someone's like being very genuine and thoughtful, and like,
he's intelligent. He's everyone.
He's intelligent as well. Like I think that goes a long way. Yeah.
It's funny when people bring up that point, and you see it in some articles here, like Audi versus Williams. I don't know. I don't think of it that way. I think of Williams and Sauber as the two bottom of the barrel teams, and I give Williams a 2-year head start because that's how long, or maybe even 3. That's how long Vowles has been there, or will have been there by the time Audi comes in, right? And so if you're starting from the back, just because you've got a lot of money and a name brand doesn't mean you're going to instantly be great, right? And so 3 years could go by if you're Carlos Sainz. If you chose Audi, you could just be languishing there at the back of the field with Audi badged on your car while Williams continues its slow but steady rise. So I don't know. I'm a Williams fanboy, I guess. I still think it's a good call for Sainz.
Time will tell.
Speaking of driver news, though, we have a few open seats still. Alpine has an open seat next to Pierre Gasly after Esteban Ocon was confirmed for Haas, seated next to Oliver Behrman. Williams has a seat open because Lewis Hamilton moved to Ferrari. Ricardo has not yet been confirmed for 2025. And the seat in the Sauber/Audi next to Hülkenberg is also up for grabs. So those are the things still yet to be decided on. but we believe, or Autosport, quote, has learned that one Jack Doohan is on the verge of a deal with the Alpine Formula One team that will see him race alongside Pierre Gasly next year. He is their reserve driver. He is a Formula 2 driver. And the new team principal at Alpine, Oliver Oakes, was at High Tech, the Formula 2 outfit, which Jack Doohan had raced for in the past. Doohan has completed in 6 free practice 1 sessions for Alpine in Mexico, Abu Dhabi, Canada, and Silverstone. So look for that confirmation soon, I guess. What do you guys think? Do you know much? You've watched more Formula 2 than I have, Danny. He's the son of Mick Doohan, if you're a motorcycle head.
Yeah, I'm so bad every year. I watch Formula 2. Literally, I'll watch every single race, and I will be in between races completely forgetting who is doing well on a race-by-race basis because of the chaos of that series, especially when they do a lot of multiple race weekends as well, where the points are, pretty good on one race and not so good on the other one.
And they flip the grid, right? Or top 8 or something?
Top eight, they invert them, for the sprint. So, because like you can look at the drivers' championship in those, but it sometimes doesn't really paint the full picture necessarily. Sometimes folks get lucky wins. Sometimes folks like consistency, I think, is the thing you're often looking for as well. Unfortunately, I do not have much insight on Jack Doohan.
From Alpine's perspective, I think, you've been so badly burned by your traveling mercenaries. Like the team is not in good shape. Like anyone who has a lot of agency to leave has left, right? With the exception of Gasly, but like it's been kind of sorted with how things have worked out with them trying to bring in hired guns to be sort of the stable veteran anchoring the team. Gasly is now that stable veteran. So it makes sense, to me that like you would just at a certain, like you just want to get some young blood in there and have that person be, maybe they might be a vulnerability insofar as like rookies are an unknown quantity, but at the same time, it could give you stability for a team that is kind of against its will, once again in a rebuild mode.
Yeah.
1 second. This is an unusual barking pattern. I need to investigate this from Mina.
Go for it. I've got some pretty boring. The next news story is a boring one. The one after, though, I want Rob back for. So let me take this one real quick.
You want to take an ad break?
Yeah, let's take an ad break. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with 2 more news stories. All right, Danny. Speaking of drivers. Piastri.
Let's talk about ribs. Fractured ribs. So apparently,
not baby back.
Oscar, no, you do not want these back. I guess Oscar Piastri busted up one of his ribs. We didn't know about it. Apparently, he put up a post on Instagram a couple of days ago saying, "First part of the season done. First GP victory. First broken bone. Ribs enjoying the break." So he hadn't mentioned this before at all. And this is reported from racefans.net. The McLaren driver shared an image from what appears to be an ultrasound scan, which shows that he has suffered a fracture to his 6th rib. The date of the ultrasound reads July 8th, 2024, suggesting it was taken on the Monday following the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. This setback emerged around the time of the Austrian Grand Prix, though details surrounding the event that led to the injury remain vague. So they haven't said at all when this happened, which is pretty interesting. McLaren spokesperson said he picked up the injury around Austria, but it is fully healed now, but they wouldn't say anything else about where he got it. And yeah, I bet that sucks. Have you ever busted up a rib? I've bruised one, and that really, really hurt. It was like, it stops everything. Like your breathing sucks and your positioning and your sleeping and everything is just totally shagged.
Could you imagine suffering G-forces
with
that too? Oh, I couldn't. You'd have to be 20 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting that maybe it was a particularly, I don't know, maybe some ribs are easier than others, but yeah, apparently he messed himself up and didn't even mention it. So and we talked about this before with some of them who like hurt their fingers or jammed their thumbs or, obviously
it's always cycling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Except usually they just say I was cycling here, just not getting into it.
That's why I don't think it's cycling. I'll bet it's something embarrassing.
You know what it's going to be? You know what all the school kids are going to be? You know how there's always somebody
flossing.
in every generation has had somebody who has had their rib removed electively, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm not saying that, but that's every generation has that person.
People might be.
Exactly. He might be the next one for the next generation. That's the guy.
Oscar Piastri and Marilyn Manson.
Exactly. It was Marilyn Manson for us as well.
Yeah.
Marilyn.
What about Underground Fight Club though? That could also be a thing.
Oh.
Do you know
I could see Oscar cleaning up at a fight club.
Who's the guy? Kylo Ren, that actor. What's his name again? He was in Girls and stuff.
Driver.
Adam Driver. My wife's been rewatching Girls, so I'm up there rewatching Girls sometimes, and she's such an interesting dude, and obviously in that show. But I googled him, and apparently he did start a fight club when he was. I know he was in the Marines years later, but he was in the army, but he did start an underground fight club when he was a teenager in his hometown.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I thought you were going to say he was in the Marine Corps, which he was, and then was gonna ship out to Iraq in the early 2000s, but like broke something.
Was it his rib? You're right. It might have been his rib.
And he couldn't go. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. That also happened. So maybe he's the guy. Maybe it's all. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Everyone's getting their ribs out. Let's do it. Let's be a legend like Marilyn Monroe. The other story I've got here. She had her, didn't she?
Almost.
Isn't that? No. Okay, I thought she did. My references are, I'm a vampire who's like 200 years old, so sometimes I pop up with these references that nobody connects with. But I've been podcasting for almost that entire time, but that is now up for, that is under threat because Formula One, maybe you've heard of Formula One. They are reportedly forcing some F1 creators to change their names. This is a new story, but in some way it feels like an old story, Drew, when you think about the Formula One concept page on Giant Bomb, for instance.
Wow, you're right. Yes. This to me sounds like a Bernie Eccleston era headline.
Yes.
Because as you mentioned, Danny, Giant Bomb, the website about video games, which is and was a video game wiki, had a page for the F1 franchise and deigned to use the F1 logo. Got a cease and desist. Had to remove it.
To this day, if you go to that page, there is a blank image where the logo should be saying,
right?
this is here because F1 sent a cease and desist. Giant Bomb, of course, being the website that this podcast originated on.
That's right.
Back when it was called Alt F1.
Yeah.
Both of these names might be under threat given this. So apparently, F1 have been rumored to have sent some cease and desist orders to certain content creators, and then there's been other ones who have just gone through some rebranding recently but not said anything. A couple of these, this reporting from The Verge, among the abrupt branding changes was Paddock Project, formerly F1 the Girls, which I think is for the girls. Is that how you sort of read that? F1 or the girls? I'm not quite sure. Hey, maybe a name change
for the girls.
For the girls, yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure. An F1 fan podcast, much like ourselves. Paddock didn't mention receiving a cease and desist letter when announcing the change, instead writing that the new name reflects where we are and where we're headed. So who knows? Maybe that was just like a genuine rebrand. But there are some other ones like F1 influencer Michaela Kostaras, who also recently changed her name from She Loves F1 to She Loves Vrooms, which is something I can personally get behind. I love a vroom. I vroom.
Maybe everyone's just branching out to IndyCar. You know, they're just finding out how great IndyCar is.
Good point. Yeah, they're all about it. And again, this is somebody who presumably that name is like that's more of an Instagram, TikTok situation, right? Where it's like a username, maybe not a brand. But that seems even worse in a way. That's just like that's just their username. Like, okay. F1 commentator Tony Cowan Brown said in a video recently that she's been hearing rumblings about the cease and desist letters for at least the last 6 months. She added that Formula One is targeting those who are using F1 in their branding and who are not, who are capitalizing on it, as well as creators who pretend to somehow be associated with the organization. Formula One did not immediately respond to The Verge's request for comment. So, look,
that last one, I'm curious about. Like the fact this is so far happening, it sounds like mostly in the influencer space.
Seems like it. Are we influencers, Rob? Have we influenced people?
I think we would be classified as media.
Okay, yeah.
And like I think so. I like not saying that this is not happening or that like they're only going after. Who knows? Maybe we're about to get a C&D and like we have to change our podcast. But so far, that last note about like people who are kind of letting on that they're affiliated with F1, but maybe aren't.
Right.
That's the kind of shit that does get an organization looking through its list of people that it knows about and like trying to figure out what they're up to and how they're representing themselves. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to crack down on anyone who's like using their brand. But if it's mostly concentrated in influencers so far, I'm curious then what is drawing attention? Like what is the type of promotion or content that they are making that is drawing the eye of Sauron?
Wonder if they're selling merch or something. I don't know.
I'm not sure because like the thing is, if you can't name a thing, you can't use the F1 or Formula One name in the title of a podcast or like searchability for any new product is just dead. Like you can't like if you're trying to break in, try to create like media about F1 and you can't say that the media you create is about F1, unless you're kind of grandfathered in with an audience, the discoverability problem becomes well nigh impossible. But if you keep pushing this also at a certain point, it is possible somebody will take you up on that legal threat and be like, let's go see about the enforceability of not allowing people to say that their media property is like covering the sport of F1.
I just went to look to see what's going on with WTF1. A year now after I think Matt and Tommy left. Is that site gone? I think it's gone.
There's been other issues there.
Oh, okay. That's I wasn't assuming it was that, but I was just like, I didn't realize that was gone. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I do not think the succession plan went particularly well, which is unfortunate because some really good people were involved in like trying to take it on.
Right.
But it's the classic, you have a personality-led thing that a lot of people are passionately attached to, like the particular voice and notion of like who the hosts are, and the like starting the next chapter with a new like team is really, really tough. And
the same thing happened with Donut this year too. Like there's been a bunch of people leaving Donut Media as well. Just it seems to be this in a way maybe like car and automotive stuff. What'd you say?
Who left Donut?
I don't follow a lot of Donut stuff. I just have seen on my feed like
That's
2 or 3 people who have gotten their own why I left Donut thing in the past couple of months. And it seems like a lot of it has got to do with the whole thing that happened kind of in a way the same thing that happened in games media a number of years ago, where you basically had websites, again, kind of like Giant Bomb, Waypoint, of course, where you have people who are sort of not bigger than the brand, but like, once they go, like what's left, right?
It's a classic problem. Like it's really tricky for like, how does a media company develop a brand that doesn't immediately sort of become someone's personal brand?
Right.
And
how do you
that is
keep
a hard
that
problem
person without basically paying them through the nose? But like,
at which point,
that's what,
because you basically have to pay them as much as they would be making if they took it independent, but at that point you're paying them the entire, like it's a hard problem to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. The disparity between what they could probably get on their own and what a media org is going to what the work is worth against what they could earn are two different things. Worth, at least in the current economy or whatever. Yeah.
Just want to point out that Giant Bomb is a great website. I'm on this Formula One page right now, and you're right, Danny. The franchise logo says this logo has been removed at the request of Formula One. But the great thing about Giant Bomb is that it has, because it's a wiki, it will populate quote unquote characters that appear in Formula One franchise games.
Oh, wow.
And then they're organized over here by alphabetical: Alain Prost, Alex Zanardi, Andrea De Cesaris, Bowser.
Beautiful.
Damon Hill, Donkey Kong.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So make sure
right.
you're subscribed to the feed. If the name changes someday it wasn't our fault, I swear.
Yeah, it's the beauty of RSS. It'll just update.
Yeah.
Also, F1.cool. Pry that URL from our cold, dead hands. All right, that's it for news. Danny, you want to take us through a track walk of good old Zandvoort?
Yeah, we're back to Zandvoort, the beautiful beachside resort just outside of, or not too far from, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, the Low Countries, if you will.
Neither here nor there.
Exactly. The track is 4.259 kilometers, about 2.65 miles. Not the longest track in the world. 72 laps as a result.
Oh boy.
It's an old one. It was part of that sort of post-World War II racing boom that happened. That, tracks like Silverstone opened in 1948, and so did Zandvoort. It had its first race in 1950 as well. I actually thought it was 1952. I have 1950 written down here, but for some reason I didn't think it was in the first F1 season, but it was there or thereabouts anyway. So it's been part of F1 history for a long time, but it was basically not in F1 for my entire lifetime. They ran races there sort of on and off for the 35-year period between 1950 or the early 50s and 1985. And then it didn't come back until 2020. It was a recent addition, largely due to the popularity of Max Verstappen, I think it's fair to say, because the track itself is not exactly set up for the modern Formula One car. If you've watched John Frankenheimer's Grand Prix, there's a great chapter of the movie that takes place there, and it kind of shows you what those super nimble little nippy roller coaster style early F1 cars were able to do around this track, which kind of feels like it's super fast, it's tight, crazy orientation of corners. There's a turn 3 called Tarzan that has a banking on it, which is not something you see in F1 very often. It has the feeling of like a roller coaster or go-kart track, that type of stuff. But the F1 cars these days are pretty big, and it's difficult to get a good race there unless Mother Nature gets involved. So let's talk about some memorable moments over the years. I did a bunch of research on this. All of them but one are from the pre-1985 era. In 1975, James Hunt had his first ever win in Formula One. He anticipated sticking on slicks at a drying track a good 6 laps before Niki Lauda did, and managed to get a great gap in front of him. Lauda tried to hunt him down for the rest of the race, but he was unable to catch up with the Brit. In 1977, Hunt and Andretti had a fantastic ending or last couple of laps to dispute the lead. Lots of fighting back and forth on the banking into turns. Gilles Villeneuve had a interesting crash here in 1979 and famously drove his car back with 3 wheels. He was not going to be able to drive in the race anymore. He had lost the rear left, it was, and it was so bad and hanging on in such an awkward position that it was almost lifting the back of the car or pushing the back of the car down, which was forcing the front right to also not really make contact. So for some of the turns, he was actually on 2 wheels. He put his hand in the air so that the other drivers would know that he was stricken and would have to overtake him. And then there's
gotta put this hand up. You may be able to see that I have 3 wheels, but I'm driving so good that maybe you don't.
Exactly. I'm dragging this piece of metal all over this track. Please stay away. And then when he brought it into the pits, he got a big high five clap from his pit guys, which I thought was funny. It's like, great job. He crashed and made it back to the pits. In 1983, title rivals Prost and Piquet had a great clash here for the ages too. And the last ever race, actually, Niki Lauda took his final F1 win. So the last win for Lauda and the final race at Zandvoort before they came back in 2020. Super tight ending, beat his teammate Alain Prost by 0.2 of a second. And then Zandvoort came back in 2020. And I gotta be honest, it was boring. It wasn't great. The races weren't fantastic. But in 2023, we had that big old rain cloud. We had the one that started at the race, which sort of jumbled the whole thing up. And then we had the one that turned up with like 15 laps remaining, I think it was. It ended up causing a red flag. I think it was Guan Yu Zhou who just completely aquaplaned into the barriers at the end of the start-finish straight. But an absolutely bananas race last time around. Alonso ended up on the podium as a result. He started in 5th and managed to claw his way up there. He was in the lead for a while, actually. So Zandvoort has the chance to give you a good race, but it might need some rain to do it.
Well, Danny, that's where I come in. Let's see here. For the race weekend, we're looking at 3 p.m. local time. What's that? Temperature-wise, 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 19 Celsius. Precipitation-wise, this is qualifying day, by the way. 58% for qualifying.
Oh, I'll take
That's
it.
what we're looking at. Yeah,
I'll take
and
it.
it is right on the dunes there, so we might get some little wind here, looking at 13 miles an hour or 21 kilometers an hour. Race day, however, we're looking at slightly cooler temperatures, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 Celsius. Wind, a little less, 12 miles an hour, 19 miles an hour. Precipitation, 2%. So,
well, that's not
unless
great.
things change between here and now, which they certainly can do.
Things can change. It's true.
Yes, they can. But heading into the second half of the season, Max Verstappen is leading the Drivers' Championship with 277 points. Lando Norris is in second with 199. Charles Leclerc is in third with 177. Piastri fourth with 167. And Carlos Sainz in fifth with 162. Hamilton's in sixth with 150. Perez in seventh with 131. Russell's in eighth with 116. Alonso's in ninth with 49. And Stroll in 10th with 24. Hulkenberg and Tsunoda are tied behind him with 22. Ricciardo's got 12. Behrman in 14th place with 6 points, tied with Pierre Gasly. Kevin Magnussen's in 16th with 5 points, also tied with Esteban Ocon. Albon in 18th with 4 points. Zhou, Sargent, and Bottas all have 0. In the constructor standings, Red Bull Racing is on top with 408 points. McLaren is in second with 366, not so far behind with half a season to go, especially if current trends continue. Ferrari is in third with 345, also fairly close to McLaren. Mercedes in fourth with 266, and Aston Martin a big jump back to fifth place with 73 points. RB is in sixth with 34 points.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Gene Haas and team are in seventh place with 27. Alpine's in eighth with 11. Williams has 4, and Sauber has 0.
Womp womp.
If you would like to join the standings yourself, you can do so in our official Shift+F1 Fantasy League. You can use the link in the show notes to join. You can also send us an email, shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. Shall we get to the emails? Danny,
Sure.
kick things off here.
I got this first one. Rob's queued it up for me. This one comes in from Rajiv. The word has been on my mind in the last month or so with regards to Liberty Media has been inshitification, as described by Corey Doctorow. I'm sure you'll talk about this crackdown on any indie creator with the F1 in their names in the show, but needless to say, I'm worried about what they'll do to my favorite podcast about Windows keyboard shortcuts. It does seem like this is a short-sighted and low blow on the people who are actually making F1 for so many people. Oh, thanks. But other inshitification has come for us here in France. I actually moved here from the States just a year ago, so I brought my USD how do you say that word?
Denominated?
Denominated. Sorry, I just didn't know what it was. USD denominated F1 TV subscription with me. It had been absolutely great. I was also able to tune into the F1 TV broadcast from wherever. Watching speedy race cars go 300 kilometers an hour on a train that goes 300 kilometers an hour is a special kind of feeling.
Nice.
Enjoying the TGV there, I see. But just last month, F1 TV put into force a deal with Canal Plus that completely gutted F1 TV in France. The punchline is that they have made the only legal option for watching F1 anything to be €46, that's $50 per month subscription to Canal Plus, a huge media behemoth. Which, of course, is only the French coverage. Cinéma dérangé pas. Salut, Danny. Sorry, man. That's not
better than I can do.
Apologies to France. Except the coverage is filled with pleasant characters like Jacques Villeneuve. They don't even allow access to any other F1 TV shows like Julian Palmer's analysis. The app itself is gutted. The only F1 TV features they're going to preserve is live timing, but only a bastardized version through Canal Plus. Of course, Liberty is a gang of bloodsucking capitalists who want to turn the screw now that they've gotten us where they like us, but that doesn't mean I have to be happy about it. All of this has me worried that pretty soon Disney will show up with a big pile of Mickey Mouse bucks and make it so that even the US coverage will only be through a very expensive subscription to ESPN. The only thing keeping me sane is the hope that the only reason they blocked F1 TV's coverage in France is because it's not an English-speaking country. I feel like the press gouging is about to begin stateside. Would love to see what you folks have to think. Votre ami and prospective F1 Shift F1 French correspondent, Rajiv. Merci beaucoup, Rajiv. Apologies for my terrible francophonianism. What's funny is I actually got an email. I got a bunch of emails today. I got like 4. I got no lie. I went on, I was going to like take a screenshot of them all and put them on Twitter, but then I realized I should get back to my job of editing videos and stop posting so much. I got 4 different emails from 4 different subscription companies this morning telling me that their prices were going up. And it was like quite a lot. And one of them was, I guess it was through Apple, because I think I bought F1 TV through my Apple TV, saying that F1 TV was going up a little bit. So can I find it here? I think it was going up. Yeah, your subscription has increased. So the old price was $79.99 for the year for F1 TV Pro annual, and the new one is going to be $84.99. So it's gone up by $5. And that seems to be the way of things all over the place with the subscription model, as a lot of these media companies have sort of, I don't know, touched the ceiling on some of this stuff. I feel like this is a very European problem Rajiv is running into. Like, that sounds very familiar to the experience of sports country by country in Europe, like when I moved from Ireland to England and stuff like that. But it does beg the question of whether F1 TV as a product will be around in a couple of years, when they can just sort of sell off their rights to somebody for maybe more than the market value has to offer. So I don't know. It seems like F1 TV has gotten so much better in the past couple of years. I would be gutted if if it was around and I couldn't get access to those shows in particular, because I do feel like a lot of the extra stuff they have on there is quite great as well.
So the thing that gives me a little bit of hope is that it feels like F1 TV is part of their long-term strategy for English speakers. Now, that is not applied to, or maybe just the US, who knows? Because in the UK, we do know people have written in, you're kind of forced to deal with Sky. And it's very funny that like a lot of what Sky offers is basically one-to-one with the F1 TV app, but not quite. It still doesn't give you everything F1 TV does. I'm not sure how much you can like do the timing and scoring views of the race through Sky. Like, you get all the in-cars, but I don't know if you get the other bells and whistles.
Press your red button.
Press that red button. As cross your mind.
What's the other one he talks about on Sky? Because they've like 15 different Sky products. So sometimes he'll be like, go to like Sky, Blimp.
88.
Yeah, and then check that. Yeah, anyway, whatever.
But it feels like for the US, they have really committed to this idea of F1 TV is going to be a media product they're aggressively offering as a direct subscription product. But I mean, Rajiv's right. At some point, because people who watch sports are just about the least capable of like canceling a sub or cutting a cord. Like, it is the one audience that you have pretty captive.
Hey Rob, how's NFL's about to start? How are you paying the hundreds of dollars a month required to watch that particular sport?
Oh, and because like with the balkanization of the offering that happens with all these things, where it's like I'm over a barrel because the Chicago Bears are in an interesting position right now. They have an exciting quarterback, so hell yes, I subscribed to Sunday Ticket.
Right,
and Sunday Ticket lets you watch all the out of market games, except that now there's going to be Netflix games, there's going to be Peacock games.
Is there really? Because they had the Amazon games last year, which was the Thursday Night Football stuff.
They still do. So, yeah, so none of that stuff is going to hit your Sunday Ticket subscription. You have to still have those other services.
Oh, my God.
So,
Sunday Ticket is expensive. It's like, what? How much is it? It's like hundreds for the...
It's hundreds.
Yeah, like
hundreds.
400 or 500 maybe for the season or something, or more?
It's like close to 400, I think.
Yeah.
That is, but like... I want to watch the Bears, and it is sort of key to it is key to my life and to some media I record. So who knows? But
business expense.
Exactly.
But
right,
Shift NFL coming soon.
But so the issue is like we are kind of a captive audience, and so at some point it might be ESPN to drive as its revenue from cable continues to dwindle, they'll look for things like F1 to sort of bring on board. Now, maybe they would basically say, let us just like put the F1 app in an ESPN wrapper. That'd be cool, but it does feel like F1 might not be too keen on doing a deal that would burn all the effort they've gone to of standing up F1 TV as like a product. Because if you can get if you can just get people to pay you directly a subscription business, that'd be a very nice place to end up. A lot of like legacy sports that have these long-standing deals with the leagues, it doesn't really make sense for them to do that. But I'm pretty sure that someone paying $80 a year to watch F1, I suspect that is still more than you get paid for your viewer of F1.
Yeah,
who's just watching through cable.
This stuff is like, we've all worked in journalism and journalism that is either like video or not, right? And you get these patterns of like leadership where they go one direction and then the next leadership goes the other direction and yada yada. And who knows, like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, if F1 decides, whoever's in charge of their media stuff decides, like, actually, no, what we should be doing is going where the audience is. And I don't know if F1 has the sort of broad mainstream appeal. Like, it definitely has more of one post Drive to Survive, but I don't know if it has the same broad mainstream appeal as other domestic sports in the US. The one that this reminds me of a little bit is UFC, because UFC has had a very passionate sort of core audience for a very long time, one that I was part of for probably the last 5 years before its big explosion with McGregor and all that sort of stuff. And they had their UFC TV stuff on the internet, and that was basically where you got pretty much everything except the pay-per-views. They would sell you there too, but you could also get the pay-per-views on, whatever, DirecTV or terrestrial television or whatever. These days, you just need an ESPN subscription to be getting basically all of the UFC stuff except for the pay-per-views, which you also rent through ESPN. You buy them through that. All of the fight nights, all of the frankly too much UFC that they're now putting out that is probably diluting everything is now available on ESPN Plus. So they have completely gone the other way and were a couple of years ahead of F1 with this stuff. But I don't think it's the same thing. I think UFC has reached this bigger audience of people who passively watch it, even, you know what I mean, have it on kind of thing, like a lot of sports. And F1's not quite there because F1 happens at weird times, whereas a lot of these sports happen at times when people are sitting in front of their televisions and they're happy to sit there and have ads shot at them. So Yeah, I'm not sure, but you never know. Some new exec comes in and decides that the old way was the old way and the older way is now the new way again. You know, this stuff just kind of happens eventually.
VPNs.
Got a VPN.
VPNs.
So Veal Shanks writes, "Hi Shifties. Red Bull's pace has obviously fallen off this year. They won Spa last couple of years after taking grid penalties, but this year wasn't even close. Do you think this is because the other teams have finally caught up to the regulations, or is this because Adrian Newey is out of the picture and he's really just that good? Definitely enjoying the season, but curious why the field is so wide open this year." Newey's still hanging around the team, but it does seem like, you know, his involvement in designing the car is probably wrapped, given that he's headed for the exit. I think there's a piece I think today over in Autosport basically analyzing where the Red Bull is at. I think it might have been someone at Red Bull basically saying they've maxed out the concept of the car, and that's kind of the trade-off of. The funny thing about F1 is that for as close as the field can get in performance, there's actually a lot of different approaches teams can use to arrive at kind of the same point in performance, and those different avenues for, like, you know, your approach to front wing, the overall philosophy of what the airflow of the car is going to be, how, like, where your downforce strengths and weaknesses are going to be, and you have really different angles of attack on the problem that still yield up convergence in terms of, like, performance of the ton of tracks, and it feels very competitive. Red Bull were the first to have a really great package, and they optimized the hell out of it, and there wasn't a lot of incentive for them to reimagine the concept because it was still so successful. It was successful into this year. It seemed like we were poised for a retread, so it seemed like the safe bet was going to be stand pat on that concept, but they sort of said that they may have maxed it out, which kind of makes sense. Like, after multiple years of pushing this design that was, like, sort of first to really solve this era of regulations, it's possible that, like, it had a lower ceiling than some other approaches they could have taken,
right.
But they were the first to arrive at a good one that had like a really high floor.
And they are very disincentivized to trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, if you have found something that works that's giving you tenths on everyone else, then unfortunately it actually has a retarding effect on your R&D because, like, well, you know, we don't want to rock the boat too much. And if that's been the case for 2 seasons, then, you know, not only are they not, maybe they've hit the ceiling, but also maybe they're not in a great position to reinvent the wheel because the entire mindset of the team has to have been optimizing what they have,
right,
rather than starting to figure out problems from a different angle.
Even focusing on individual parts, you still end up with, well, no, actually any change we make is going to kind of blow up the concept. Like, it's just going to start diminishing what we've done. So we're kind of stuck on this. And in the meantime, you know, the advantage they have is they can probably put some R&D resources toward future years in F1 to future tech, future problems. But it kind of makes sense that they would end up in this position of being vulnerable just because the car has been so successful, and it was sort of behooved them to have a sort of conservative, iterative approach. Because can you imagine if they had blown up the concept and reinvented the wheel and it didn't go well? Look at how badly that kind of tanked Mercedes. Like, yeah. I'm not sure Hamilton is going to Ferrari if the team hadn't kind of caused him to lose confidence in the entire program in the last few years. These things have, like, having a failed concept, which sometimes breeds further failure, is incredibly demoralizing and potentially really disruptive to a team. Imagine the same stuff that happened at Red Bull this year happened, but in the backdrop of it, the car sucked out of the gate because and someone owns that decision. That's the other thing, is like the, you know, team principal, head of design. Nobody wants to actually own the decision to say we need to blow up the concept that's won the last 2 championships that no one's been able to catch. because there's simply no more headroom for meaningful improvement. Because if that goes wrong, you look like a dumbass. And so I think that's this is kind of like why empires fall, right? This is how powerhouse programs like decline, is that you kind of lose the ability. You disincentivize like sort of the risk taking that got you there, because now once you're fighting to hold on to what you have, and that not just performance, but people in charge are fighting to hold on to their power, their prestige, there's really not a lot of incentive to put your credibility on the line with sort of a reimagining. So they've kind of been sitting ducks from the standpoint as other teams who had much rockier roads to try things out, but they were trying lots of different things out because nothing was quite working. And now a few of them along different avenues have arrived at packages that might have more room to improve than Red Bull does.
Well said. Should I take this next one?
Do it.
Please do.
Daniel writes, long-time listener, first-time emailer, different Daniel. I thought I'd write to share my experience attending this year's Belgian Grand Prix.
Spa-Francorchamps.
I know the commentators say it all the time, but it's true. The TV cameras do not do Eau Rouge justice. I don't think I'll forget seeing it for the first time looming over us in the fan zone. The size and scale of the track is truly something to behold. I would highly recommend walking around the circuit to see the cars from different vantage points, but be warned, the various walking routes around the track are not always well signposted, and we often found ourselves getting lost on the far side of the track. If you have the time, I recommend walking around on Friday to familiarize yourself with the track and the fastest routes to your preferred general admission vantage points as they fill up fast. For the race, we were seated in the grandstand at the top of Radion. You get an amazing view of the cars from the top of La Source all the way down through Eau Rouge and then up Radion. One thing the TV doesn't quite capture is the sound and smell of the cars bottoming out as they fly through the corner. The trackside facilities were excellent. You were never more than a few minutes walk from the nearest toilet, and I always found them to be clean. There's plenty of food, drink, and merchandise stands placed frequently around the track, so if one is busy, it was often easier to walk a couple more minutes to the next one. Everything on site is paid for using a card you add tokens to at stands around the circuit. Again, these were very well placed, and you could always top up your card when needed.
Nice.
It goes without saying, but pack for all weather. You never know when a rain shower might strike or when the blazing sun will appear. Make sure to bring sturdy shoes, as well as a lot of the footpaths are not paved and get muddy fast. For accommodation, we stayed in the charming Dutch town of Valkenburg, which was about an hour away from the track.
Oh, wow. Despite
the roads to the track being small and rural, I was impressed by the traffic management, and there was little delay getting to and from the track, even on race day. I'm impressed by that. Overall, it was a great experience that I would highly recommend to any F1 fan to put on their bucket list. Keep up the great work, guys. Daniel. It is now firmly on my bucket list. I would love to go here.
I a couple years ago, somebody wrote in saying the experience kind of, like, it seems like they've really fixed up the experience.
Yeah, like I had always just in my mind thought like, oh, it's going to be a traffic nightmare. There's nothing around there. It's in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
How do you do anything? But hey, I mean, I feel like if you're going there, you have all day to get to the track. That's the only thing you're doing that day.
I was just shocked when he said he came from the Netherlands, because I was like, what? Like, how far is that? But I guess just looking at Google Maps, there's that little bit of the Netherlands that there's like, they have a little bit that cuts down into Belgium and Germany. And that's where Valkenburg is. Yeah, it's only an hour away. Yeah, I have a buddy, Paddy McGrath, who did just in case you think my name is Irish sounding, Paddy McGrath, who I was in school with for most of my teenage years, who became a pretty fantastic motorsports photographer. And he doesn't often do F1 stuff, but he's been doing more and more recent years. And a couple of times he's been to Spa, and I've seen all the shots go up, and it's like, oh man, that'd be a lot of fun.
Does he have an Instagram?
Yeah, it's like PMG photographs or something.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, awesome work. And my uncle used to go. My uncle was like the sort of one guy in our like family circle who like owned a business and like had a bit of money, you know what I mean? And he used to go to Spa and like he'd show us photographs of Spa and stuff. So it's always been on my like, oh, that's the one to go to. But because of the weather stuff, because like I did a lot of going to music festivals in Europe, in Belgium, in fact, Rockförster is a pretty big one there, and the south of Germany, I used to go to Rock am Ring, which actually takes place at the Nürburgring. And knowing how out of the way the Nürburgring is and how out of the way Spa is, that was the one thing that always stopped me from doing it. Was like I always wanted someone else to go with because I didn't want to have to do all that by myself. So maybe when kiddo's a little bit older, I'll be able to drag her up to the Ardennes.
Nice. Well, thanks for the emails. Shift+F1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials using the link in the show notes. That's us around the internet. Should we take it around the world, Danny?
Let's race around the world. Yeah.
The F1 Academy is pairing F1 this weekend at Zandvoort for their 3-day event. The NASCAR Xfinity Series is racing in Daytona Beach, Florida for the Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola.
Yes, but take that, Sheets. Yeah, Wawa 250. Where you at, Sheets? Hell yeah.
We've got the Craftsman trucks this weekend. Are they? They are not in Daytona. They are in West Allis, Wisconsin.
Alice.
At the Milwaukee Mile.
Oh, nice.
Racing the Liuna exclamation point 175.
Liuna.
L-I lowercase capital U-N-A. Liuna.
Okay. What we got? What is Laborers International Union of North America?
Okay.
Maybe.
Is it?
The Motocross Grand Prix of Switzerland is this weekend in Oberwiesenstrasse.
It's on a street. Cool.
Yeah, apparently. Okay. The IMSA WeatherTech Championship is at the Virginia International Raceway, VIR, for the Michigan GT Challenge. IndyCar is actually we got a street circuit for you here, Rob.
Wow.
Or not a street circuit, a circuit at the Portland International Raceway for the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland. And don't worry, I've already gone there for you, so you don't have to. BitNile, Danny, is creating a seamless, immersive super app that reinvents the way we socialize, transact, and spend time online.
Super app? I already have X. So
this doesn't seem real.
Well, what do you mean? There's like a polygonal Cleopatra right here. Claim free coins.
Oh my God, it actually is Nile.
Yeah, that Nile.
Wow. Yeah. It's not just a river in Egypt, it's an app.
There's a pharaoh, there's a bootleg Keanu Reeves. They got it all.
What?
And they got a fake currency.
Super Formula is at the, it pains me to say, the Mobility Resort Motegi.
No.
Oh. Twin ring.
Not my twin ring. Located in Motegi,
Free twin
Tochigi
ring.
Prefecture.
Ooh.
And we got NASCAR.
Where are we at?
Also in Daytona Beach, those hallowed grounds, the Daytona International Speedway for the Coke Zero Sugar 400.
It's like your regular Coke without the taste or calories.
The Aspartame 400.
I'm the Diet Coke, man. I don't want none of that Coke Zero nonsense. There is the Ferrari Challenge is at Sonoma.
Cool.
This past week, coming weekend too. If you want to see a bunch of rich people drive around
Bump into each other.
Yeah.
Formula One, also this weekend. Maybe you heard of it. We got a normal weekend this weekend. Thank goodness.
Normie.
And ease our ways back into it.
I don't think I could take two Zandvoorts, I'll be honest. Although, if we had a sprint race weekend, one of them would be a wet race, so maybe that was the way to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Friday, August 23rd, Free Practice 1 kicks off at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2, followed by Free Practice 2 at 10 a.m. on ESPN2. Saturday, August 24th, Free Practice 3 is at 5:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, followed by qualifying at 9 a.m. also on ESPN2. But the race, everyone, Sunday, August 25th, 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. And that's what's going on this weekend. Danny, what happened this day in history?
I'm having to use the monitor for light because it's been a little while and it's starting to get dark again, which makes me worried because right now I have the window open and ne'er a frog is touching my ear.
Oh.
But who knows? Who knows
They're coming.
when they're going to make
They're
their
hopping
way.
across the land toward you. Like
Exactly.
It follows.
They're migrating back hop by hop. So I better finish this podcast soon. Today, August 21st in history, in 1998, Johnny Herbert was the coming man of motorsport. I don't know what that means. And after a very impressive performance in the Formula Ford British F3 and F300 series. I have to cover Rob. I'm going to keep laughing. I got to turn this way.
Tell me more about the coming man of motorsport.
Is that a phrase? Do we say that?
Did he finish?
Oh, no. Oh, this book is on a roll, man. That's not a phrase. I don't think that's a phrase. I had to reread it. No, that's what it says. That's what it says. Anyway. Oh God, his name was
First he was
being
the rising man of motorsport.
See now everything is that. His name was being touted as a future F1 star, and he has already set some fast times testing Benetton and Lotus F1 cars. On this day in 1988, he at an F3000 race at Brands Hatch, Herbert's future was thrown into doubt when he was caught up in a huge accident triggered by Swiss driver Gregor Fotek. Johnny's legs took the brunt of the massive impact, and he was lucky not to lose one of his feet. He astounded doctors with his determination to recover, and despite the fact that he could barely walk, he returned to the cockpit in early 1989, finishing a heroic fourth on his F1 debut for Benetton in Brazil. So take that, Oscar Piastri.
All right, now I feel a little bad about laughing so hard about what was ultimately about him nearly getting his foot severed. And the Beyond the Grid interview with him about that, it is like one of those what ifs that if that hadn't happened,
Really,
because he was able to they were able to save the leg, save the foot. He was able to continue racing, but it never felt the same. It was never as sensitive. Control was never so. It's your pedal foot, man. Like it's going to be a pretty major issue for an F1 driver. So like, sort of changed his driving style completely. It happened so early in his career that like, it is kind of, he still had a pretty decent F1 career, but could he have had one of the great ones?
Yeah, we shall never know. A little addendum here at the bottom, another one. Bernie Ecclestone continued his expansion of Formula One into new markets today in 2005 with the first ever Turkish Grand Prix, which was held in Istanbul. The new circuit immediately proved a hit with the F1 circus, and Kimi Räikkönen took victory for McLaren. I do miss Istanbul. That was a fun track. That and Malaysia, right? I think. Yeah. I miss the two of them. And they're actually quite similar to each other as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
right.
similar, era of Tilka design.
Yes, very true.
For sure. Though I think, I don't know, there's sort of, because
China,
Malaysia, I feel like it's more the archetype of like big straights back to back. Whereas the Turkish one is like, its showpiece is not the straight, it's that multiple apex left-hander. But I think F1 should at least give us a little treat. Every 5-6 years, we go back to Turkey. They've done nothing to the circuit, and we do it like in the COVID year, where we discover, just left to its own devices, that thing turns into an ice rink.
Oh God, the COVID year was. It was a nightmare for lots of reasons, but like the tracks we got to go on, what a weird remix year. Like I miss Portimao. I never missed Portimao before COVID, and now I desperately miss it all the time.
I don't miss. The Ferrari affiliated track, Mugello.
Oh,
I don't miss that one. That one wasn't good for F1. It just didn't really work. But yeah, it was a neat, like, hey, look at all these tracks that F1 doesn't go to anymore because they need to be bribed to go to a racetrack.
Gosh. It's like, wow, maybe we go back to Manicourt. Like, it was, at the time, it felt like we could end up anywhere as well. And we did. We ended up lots of random places.
Speaking of what could have been and tracks that I miss, Vietnam.
Oh my God.
What would that have been like?
Yes.
What a weird looking track.
What a very strange little, looks like a, what do you call one of those things? Like a boomerang or something? Kind of.
Yeah. Or like the Imperial Transport in Star Wars.
Right, yeah.
That.
I think, the closest we got, because I think a similar concept, was the Music City Grand Prix in Indy, which we're not going to have for years because there's construction going on, so they're kind of doing it like a nearby oval, I think. But that, I think, had a similar concept of we're just going to, like, race on two sides of a ridiculous straight. Which I think was the big signature feature of the Vietnam one. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see that one come to fruition. But it also seems like that was so quickly discovered to be a promoter trying to do this thing on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah. It was over before it started.
All right. Well, final thoughts, Danny, ahead of our jump back to Formula One.
Yeah, excited. It's going to be a weird little sort of couple of races, then a break again because of shenanigans and they had to move some stuff around. But yeah, I'm excited for the latter half of the season. I think there's so much to look forward to when it comes to the mostly the constructors, but also to a certain degree the driver stuff. Yeah, I wonder if there'll be much. I mean, they down tools for the summer, so you shouldn't expect to see much craziness, especially at Zandvoort. And it is a bit of a quiet track to come back to, But yeah, who knows? I'm mostly just happy that F1 is back for the rest of the season. But also, I think my kid is back in school tomorrow. But I think F1 coming back is the thing every year that reminds me that we're barreling towards Christmas now. Like for whatever reason, that and NFL coming back are the two things that I'm like, Punxsutawney Phil has sniffed the air, and now we're heading into winter again.
Madden is out.
Yes, exactly. That's it. When Madden comes out.
Yeah. Rob, final thoughts.
Yeah, just excited to see the end of this race. I'm excited. I'm enticed by this notion that like we're on an express to Christmas now. it's we're still kind of in the dog days of summer here, but the dark nights are approaching. Cool weather. Autumnal sport.
Ribbit.
Frogs.
Frogs and dogs. That's the name of this podcast. That's what we're gonna call it when the cease and desist comes knocking.
Well, whatever the name of the show, if you'd like to support it and get access to all its bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift+F1 for now Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.